and send it to you after we're done. So what I had for today's agenda is kind of an introduction to the system and just kind of enough to get you started. So we're going to start with a little bit of navigation, how to get around in the system. That only takes a couple minutes. Then we'll move into volunteers, specifically how to search for, add, and edit volunteer records manually as needed. From
And will
there,
we someday delete them too?
it is possible to delete a volunteer, to remove a volunteer, and I'll mention that then when we get to that piece.
Okay.
From there, we'll talk about configuration. We're not going to go too deep into configuration. I just want to I have a couple of items that I need to make sure that you're familiar with. And then from there, we're going to touch very briefly on um, custom data sets, which is kind of a configuration item, but I mention it separately. And then that's going to start bringing us into the process of creating opportunities. So we're going to touch very briefly on orientations and trainings, mostly just familiarize you with their presence. Then we're going to talk about creating application forms. And then we'll actually spend the latter, basically half of this training talking about the creation of opportunities, both basic and advanced. And then, as mentioned, we'll touch on that one report that was requested that I built for you yesterday. So that's my agenda for today. The next training we'll talk more about organizations, communications, and reports. So if you have any questions along the way, I absolutely encourage you to ask them. I may delay them, the answer of them, because I might be covering it later on, but definitely make sure to ask it. So, any
Hi, this
questions?
is Simone.
Mhm.
Yes. How soon can we schedule the next training for organizations?
As soon as you want. So we'll do that
Okay.
at the end then. If you want to schedule that, we can get that set up at the end.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so let's start with a bit of navigation. One thing I do want to mention before we start is I have your system open, but I also have a demo system of mine open. We will probably spend some time in my demo system, especially when we get into making opportunities, simply so that we don't put any bad data into yours. So we may switch interchangeably between them. I'll try to mention when we switch from one to another so as to prevent confusion. So, so yeah, let's start with a bit of navigation. So there's three menus that I want to make sure to point that we know what they are. The first is the quick menu. The second is the what I call the account menu. And the third is the main menu. And well, this is obviously the main menu that we can use to access anything in the system. So I usually start by mentioning the account menu. So the account menu is where you can go to My Account and update your organization's information, update your username and password, or make new users or user roles. So it's a very important page to know about and to make use of as needed. There also, for you, will be a support link. So actually, if I switch to my demo system, you'll see it, a support link. And if you click on this, it will take you to our tutorial database, which will have a growing stock of resources, videos, and written for learning the system. Your partner organizations will also have access to these resources. So just want to make sure you're aware of that as well. So that's the main menu, account menu. Next, we have the quick menu. So on the quick menu, we have the search. So quick search and advanced search, and we're going to play with these in a minute. Quick add, recently visited volunteer records, currently blank. Nope, not blank, just took a second. So recently visited volunteer records, recently visited organization records, and then just recently visited pages. So these can help kind of get you around the system for common tasks or recently visited, records and pages that you've worked with. And then the main menu, as mentioned, is kind of exactly what you think it is. This is where we can access everything in the system, not just the stuff in the quick menu. And we will be using this today. So let's start by talking about working with volunteers. So let's start with searching. So we've imported over 12,000 volunteers into your system. And one thing you might want to do is, well, find somebody. So an easy and quick way to find someone is with the quick search. We can just type in a name, part of a full name, as much of a name we have, and hit enter. So I'm going to type in Bob. There's always a Bob. hit enter, and it will bring up everybody with Bob in their first name, or possibly Bob in their last name. So Bobson, if that were a real last name, which it might be, would also come up. So give the system a second to turn through it. We have 9 Bobs. Some of our Bobs do, like I mentioned, have Bob in the last name. And from here, we can click on a person's name and view their record. We'll do that later. We can edit their record. We can also remove the volunteer. So this was the question about deleting a volunteer. You can remove them. If they have a username, what it will do is disassociate them from your organization, but their account will still exist because they might be using that account with other organizations, partner organizations, or possibly even another volunteer action center. So you can't delete their account, but you can disassociate it from your organization. You can also deactivate a volunteer. And that basically just sets them in an inactive state, so you know that they're not really working with you anymore. One more useful option here is reset password. If someone's having trouble logging in for whatever reason, you can see what their username is, and you can actually, from your side, send a password reset email to them. They also have that power, but this also makes it sometimes easier. PIN numbers are assigned by the system and are effectively ordered chronologically, I believe. So if I sign up today and you sign up after me, you will have a PIN number that is higher than mine. So Diane asked that question. Good question. I wouldn't really use that as any true indication if someone's been with you longer than someone else, but it is effectively true that the PIN numbers are assigned in chronological order. Right, so that's our search result. If we had done a search where we had only had 1 volunteer come up, then it would have actually been as automatically gone into their record. So it'd be as if I clicked on their name. So if we only had 1 Bob, this Bob for example, it would open up the person's record. So let's actually see what happens when we click on someone's record. We get the summary screen. So this summary screen just kind of gives us a brief overview of what's going on with them, their trainings they've been to, orientations that they're signed up for, some of their hours, and email, phone number, and various other data as well. So that's quick search. There's also advanced search. So advanced search is pretty handy. It lets us look by more than just name. So for example, I could search by PIN. I could search for specifically the last name, email, phone number, or down here in other criteria, basically anything else in the system. Custom data sets, address information, even skills. So we could see what skills are we looking for and what volunteers have that skill. So just to put in your criteria, hit search, and you'll get a search result similar to the one we saw just a moment ago. Alrighty, so to create a volunteer, there's 2 ways this can happen. Actually, by the way, I'm going to pause here. Any questions about searching? Quick search or advanced search?
No.
All right.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Groovy. So let's move. So adding a volunteer. There's 2 ways a volunteer can be added to the system. 1, you may manually add them. And there are a variety of situations when that might happen. Possibly they gave you a physical application form. I'm not knowing the operations, that may not actually happen, but you have the ability to add them manually. The other way is probably the more common way, and that is they have signed up online as a volunteer, and have applied for an opportunity. So if they go to your public page and register as a volunteer, that will add them to your database. Or if they've potentially registered via some other site, possibly funlyconnect.com, and they come to your public page and they apply for an opportunity, that will also add them in. So 2 different mechanisms they can be added in by. So when they're added in, you're going to get all the data that is in their record. So let's go ahead and click Add Volunteer and see what that data might be. So I'm going to use the quick Add Volunteer, and the screen we're about to get is actually more or less the same screen you get when you edit a volunteer, with some exceptions, and we'll actually edit a volunteer to see those exceptions. But this is our Add Volunteer screen, or Add Edit, depending on how you want to look at it, and the only 2 required fields are first name and last name. If they applied online, you will also be guaranteed to have their email, because we require email as part of the sign-up process. And you probably have more data than that. As they fill out forms and things, you also get more information as time goes on. So this is going to give you the ability to add them or edit them as needed. As you can see, has some pretty big, all the basic fields you'd expect: first name, last name, address, gender, birth date, causes and skills that they're interested in, emails, and phone numbers. So any questions? Can we add required questions for volunteers to answer when registering? Yes, so we'll touch on that in a little bit. Simone had a good question, which we will cover when we get to custom data sets. So actually, to touch a little on that, let's go to a volunteer's record that currently exists and see some of those differences that I mentioned. These must be teams, actually. These are probably a team. Team details. So not a good example. I want a volunteer. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this Bob here that we are using as a guinea pig earlier. And so we're going to talk about it later. But custom data sets, i.e. custom questions, are stored in the volunteer's record. We'll talk about how to make those, but they are stashed under additional information. So here, this top section is what I mentioned about some of the differences of an edited volunteer record versus an added one. When you're adding a volunteer record, they haven't been saved yet, so these tabs don't yet exist, nor do they have a PIN number yet. Once you save them, they will have these tabs across the top. Programs will list any programs that they're associated to through an opportunity. We'll talk about those. Additional information, custom data set fields. Once again, we'll talk about those. Emergency contact information, exactly what you think it is. Social media is a place to store and record social media information. More will come with that in the future. And then documents is where you can actually upload and save documents to a volunteer record. So,
Meaning if he's in a resume, we can upload the resume? That's
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So we can go to Documents, Add New Document, and upload the resume.
Okay.
One thing I forgot to mention with adding a volunteer, or even editing a volunteer who does not have a username yet, meaning they haven't actually taken control of their account. If you provide an email for them, there is the ability to send them a sign-up email. So I can add a volunteer manually, mark this box, hit save, and they will get an email basically saying, hey, take control of your account, make your account, and fill in your information, make a username and password, and register with the organization. So at that point, they will take control of their account. You started the process for them. It'll have some of their information already filled in that you provided, and then they can take it to the next step. So that's really handy because in the end, we honestly want all volunteers to have their own account because that gives them, I love this feature. And we're actually going to implement it for organizations too. But that's a topic for the next meeting. Because ideally all volunteers are going to have an account so that they can help manage their information. So, alrighty. So that's actually everything I was going to cover about volunteers. That's all we need to cover for the moment. Any questions about adding, editing, or searching for volunteers?
No.
All right.
You just always have to click that
I'm
save.
sorry, can you go to that the additional info section?
Yes, let me go back a page. I need to go back a page. There we go.
Yeah.
So
Okay. We wanted, for example, we had a required question on our other site. Are you willing to volunteer in times of disaster? Or are you
I know how to do that, Simone.
Okay, thanks.
All right, and we'll skim over it too when we talk about custom data sets. In which case, that actually starts heading into our next topic. So our next topic from here, unless there's any other questions, is configuration. So we have a few configuration items that mostly I just want to give definitions for. So we're going to go to the main menu, and we're going to go to configurations. And there's a variety of configurations on this screen. About half of them are actually search tags, and we're going to define those search tags later and what they are. But this is where you will configure them if you want to add new ones. And those search tags are activity types, causes, age group required, population served, age group served, and skills. I don't think I missed one. That's all of them. So those are the search tags. We will define them later. So I'm going to put those aside for now. The three configurations I actually want to talk about today are programs, agreements, and custom data sets. But I would be remiss if I don't at least mention its existence, email notifications. Various emails will be sent by the system to you or to volunteers or even to organizations when certain activity happens. Those templates are stashed in here, and I always recommend reviewing them. So when a volunteer signs up for an opportunity, for example, an email goes to them saying thank you. That email template is found in here. You will also get an email, and you mentioned this actually earlier, who they went to, but you will be able to dictate the content on that email that goes to a staff member. Most people don't tend to do much with that one, editing-wise, but it is available under email notifications so that you're aware. So I recommend checking those out. I'm not going to go into them deeply right now, beyond just mentioning their existence. But what I do want to mention is programs and agreements and then custom data sets. So let's start with programs. So what programs are, is, will be, what they are. I'm never certain on the grammar on that one. They are usually some aspect of your operations tied to your mission statement or major initiatives or programs that you have that volunteer opportunities may be linked to. So they're kind of the bigger picture. So if part of your mission statement was disaster relief, it sounds like you mentioned disasters, that might be a program. So you may have a disaster relief program with individual disaster-related opportunities linked to it. Now, the cool thing about these programs, and we'll see in just a second, is actually, no, let's bring it up now. When we configure them, we can provide details about the program, and this will be displayed on your public portal. So when I go to your public portal, in fact, we can do that right now. Open a new tab. If I go to your public portal, one of your menu options is oh cool, I like all the little graphics, very nice, is programs. So any programs you configure here will be also listed under programs so that they can get the details of the programs, learn about the programs, and find opportunities linked to those programs. So if you want to put a program for your disaster relief or whatever exactly it is, then that would be listed under programs. They can learn about it and see available opportunities. So, and I see a question, I'll answer it in just a second. When you're creating a program, it needs a name. And actually, I think that's the only required field, is the name. But I always recommend putting the details and perhaps a logo, if possible. So if the disaster preparedness, disaster relief program is also a department, and your department happens to have a logo, maybe put that on there, or some image that might, help kind of present it a little bit better. There are, however, a few settings that come with this program. So these programs are actually available, depending on the configuration here, for partners to link up to, so that a partner could have a opportunity that could be linked to one of your programs. So if you had a disaster preparedness or disaster relief program and you had a partner organization that helped out make with its own opportunities in that regard, they could post their opportunity to your program. Whether or not you allow this is kind of depending on our settings here. So what we can do is we can say, you know what, if they attempt to connect to it, we have to approve it. And even if we approve them, we can require that we vet all opportunities linked to it. We can further say that we require to vet all volunteer applications regardless of the opportunity linked to the program, and then whether or not those opportunities are on the public site, and whether or not we give ourselves, the Volunteer Action Center, you guys, give yourselves permission, the power to edit the hours or add hours for volunteers associated to opportunities via your partners to that program. I have a couple links there, but if they post an opportunity to your program, you would be able to edit the hours of their volunteers linked to that program via that opportunity. So,
we can link to them without their say-so?
Well, these are your programs, so you don't need to give yourself permission to link to your own programs.
Right, our own, but to one of theirs? Right now we're having a challenge opportunity. agencies already have something posted, and some volunteer projects are brand new and not partners. It would be an umbrella for like 10 opportunities, some of which are on the system already,
Mm-hmm.
and some of them aren't even partners with
Gotcha.
us.
So if you're trying to post to one of your, if you're trying to post one of your opportunities to a partner, in order to do that, they themselves would actually have to be a volunteer action center.
No, but
Because, but one of their
one of
opportunities posted to you, yes, that is definitely doable. You should, and under the publishing settings for that opportunity.
all right, I'll take a look.
Yeah, we might need to check a look at that one, that example too. Diane had a question, can an invitation for volunteers for a program be private? We don't actually have invites for programs. We have invites for opportunities. I usually cover that in the next training. We talk about communications, but yes, I can send a private email invite for an opportunity to a given set of volunteers. However, if that opportunity is not published, then I don't believe they'd be able to sign up for it. But in the end, you always will have the power to vet who signs up for an opportunity if you want it. But we can go over that example a bit more in detail. But to answer the question, you don't have invites for programs. We do have email invites for opportunities, which would be effectively private, and that no one else sees the email. But everybody would have to be able to see the opportunity. So cool. And we can talk more about that when we talk about communications next time. So that's programs. Any questions about programs, especially what they are?
No, it makes sense.
Cool. All right, so I'm going to move us along. We're getting a little behind schedule, so we're going to be a little over time. Agreements are basically exactly what you think they are. They're waivers that can be set up in the system and required as part of an application form to be electronically signed. So liability waivers, agreements, behavioral agreements, media release, things like that. So add new agreement, give it a name, either put the content or upload a document, and does it apply to organizations or to volunteers? So you can have organization agreements so that if they register through your site, they are required to sign them. Most of the time people though use it for volunteers. If they don't register through your site, then you will have the option to attach it to an application form later and you'll catch it at that time. And most of the time you want to put these things on application forms because that's usually when you're guaranteed to be able to catch it. Because theoretically someone could register their account outside your public portal. So any questions about agreements? Not too much fanciness here, but a cool feature.
No, that's good.
Okay, and then that brings us to custom data sets. This is, leave page, how you can create custom questions that you can make available later. So right now you have a couple of them. The volunteer information one, for example, is attached to volunteer records. These two are usable on application forms, and as soon as we do an update, they will also be shown in a volunteer's record. We'll set that aside for now. But basically what a custom data set is it's a container, a grouping of questions that you wish to keep track of. So under volunteer information, that's where you can put, well, any question you want, really. You might have an internship program or a set of opportunities that you need internship specific questions. So that might be a data set. And so the system, like I mentioned, as we saw, comes with certain fields. This allows you to extend the system into any direction you need it to go. So if I edit this custom data set, we can take a look at how it's put together. And we can see that it's got the name volunteer information. It has the field, how did you hear about us? I could add additional fields such as, would you be willing to volunteer in a time of disaster? You know, that question you mentioned, which might be in one of the other data sets. You know, we'd have to check those. But you could ask anything else you want. Right now, based on the applicable to options, this data set would only be presented in the volunteer record and then also would be presented when the volunteer registers. But we wouldn't be able to put it onto an application form. Chances are you want to be able to put it on application forms. And that's where the opportunity option is. So volunteer means it will be required during volunteer registration, which, as we mentioned, they can come at, they may have made their account via some other mechanism than your public site, and will show in their record. Opportunity is not required during registration, but does make it available for application forms. So this is your most commonly used one. And as soon as we have an update coming, I think next week, it will also be available in the volunteer's record. So this is the most common one that you want to use. Organization is going to be displayed in an organization's record and required when an organization signs up for their account via your public portal. So that's custom data sets. Pretty powerful piece. They're pretty straightforward to set up. Any questions? We'll see them in use in a few minutes.
Okay, just
Oh,
staff,
hi.
the staff use only.
Oh,
That'll
thank
only-
you. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, so required means the field is required, must be filled out. Staff use only means it will not be displayed on the public site, but will be available to you as a staff member on the back end. Thank you for mentioning it. I almost skipped that. That's a very important one.
Mhm. Oh, something, you know, I removed some of those data sets because we were concerned with the volunteer sign up because we're doing a big push this weekend. So actually I played around with it, but I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Oh, so it would, what I removed was removed from the volunteer application sign on.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
if I
so
put staff only, does that mean, oh, so something like court reported,
mm-hmm.
if we put staff use only for that,
Mm-hmm.
then we could, when we're on the phone or ask a question, put it in, but
Yeah.
it's not that every volunteer who goes to sign up has to answer that question. Is
Correct.
that correct?
That is correct.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you mark it staff use only, they won't see it, but you will.
Okay. Thank you.
Was there another question?
Yes, I have a question. Are we able to contact previously registered volunteers to ask them questions that we had required later on?
Yeah.
Like, are we able to go back?
You can always contact them and update the fields in their record.
Like, but through an email? Oh, I guess that's communication, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, there's not a way
Oh.
to email. So are you asking, can you email the form to them and have them fill out the form?
Or not even a form, but like some questions, whether it's related to what, skills they have or disaster related.
Mm-hmm.
I don't.
You can always communicate with them, yeah. You can always send an email
that,
saying, hey, can you answer me these questions so I can update your record? That's always an option. Yeah.
Right. And then we manually update it.
Yeah. Or you can instruct them, hey, can you go into your profile and update your skills? Always an option. And then ask any other further questions you may have. Or you could update those things. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
If we add questions back in, do previously signed up volunteers have to answer them? It is not required. So if I sign up for an opportunity, fill out the form at that time, become a volunteer and go on with my life, and then you go in and you edit the application form for that opportunity with new questions, I will not be forced to stop volunteering and go back and answer them. So new questions are not retroactive. They won't force the person back. So they'll continue on with what they are, and unless they sign up for some other opportunity with that form, they will not be presented with the question again. But you could always have them sign up for the opportunity again next year. That's why we'll talk about date ranges and when we talk about opportunities, and have them fill out the new application form and thus get an update that year. So that'll actually be a good example for us when we get into making opportunities in a little bit. Specifically when we get to scheduling, but we'll put that aside for about 15 minutes. Anything else with custom data sets? Okay, cool. So that's basically where I'm going to end with configurations. As you saw, there was more configurations, but those are the ones that are pertinent for us today. From here, I'm going to talk very briefly about orientations and trainings. Mostly, I'm just going to mention they exist. So what an orientation training is exactly what the name implies. It's an orientation, a training session that a volunteer may have to go to in order to be considered a volunteer as part of the application process. So you can create a orientation such as the Karen test that an opportunity may require, and then within that orientation, you'll say what it is, the details on it, where you would do the testing, and then under schedule, when various sessions for the testing would be. So for example, here, there is a single date, 3/22/2016, from 8 to 9 p.m. that you would show up and do the testing. Later on, and we'll talk about when we get to scheduling later on, we'll talk about it, you could add additional schedules and just keep this orientation going, because otherwise if I set up another orientation that's the same thing, then it won't recognize that I've already done it here. I don't know if I explained that very well, but if I have an orientation used by one opportunity and I link a different opportunity to it, then that opportunity would use the same orientation, and if that orientation has already been done by that person, won't require that they do it again. So what I usually
Right.
recommend is add new shifts instead of adding new orientations if they're the same thing.
Oh,
Does that make sense? I think I
yep.
phrased that very terribly, but I got the message across nonetheless. Another thing you can also do is if a new test is required for a new year, then that would be a case where you'd take the Karen test and set it up again for 2017, for example. So you'd have Karen test 2017 to represent that they got a retest every year.
Mhm.
So cool. So that's orientations and trainings. I mostly just mentioned it exists. The scheduling piece of it we will explain when we do orientation, when we do opportunities in a little bit. It uses the same type of scheduling. So we'll set that aside for now. So from here, what I want to talk about is actually designing application forms, because now we're getting ready to make our opportunities. So we've created custom dataset fields, and now we can use those custom dataset fields on application forms, which in a moment we'll be able to see attached to opportunities. So under design application form, you can have as many forms as you might need in the system. You could have one form shared for multiple opportunities. You could have each opportunity have its own form, totally up to you. So a given opportunity can only have one form attached to it, but a given form can be used for multiple opportunities. So
Mhm.
here you have one for a blood drive and one for a Walmart truck a truck food drive. You could create a general one that you just use for day-to-day opportunities, or as you see here, you can create them for specific opportunities. You can edit, you can copy, you can delete. I don't think if it's in use though, you can't delete it. And you can add a new form. Forms are pretty straightforward to make. I'll just make like a demo one here called like general form. And to add fields, just go to add field, drop in the field you want. So I can put name, email. Now, there we go. Since I mentioned these are required and we should already have these, in this case it would be more of just a person updating their information, because the system will remember their previous answers. So if I add in, say, emergency contact info, if they've previously filled this in, all they have to do is make sure it's up to date. So that's one of the nice
Mhm.
things about these forms is they can also double as just a review. They may have already filled it in, yes, but this lets them review the data in case it's changed. This also would be where I could update the form, put it on my new opportunity for my new year, and when they go to apply, all the answers they filled in previously are there, but any new questions they will have to fill in. So the fields that come with the system, just select them. Custom data sets, you'll select custom data set, then select the custom data set you want to put on. So there's our volunteer information. And then if we have any agreements, same idea. Select volunteer agreement and then select the agreement that you want to put on.
Oh,
So
that's good.
yeah, pretty straightforward to use. If you want to make something required, we can edit the section, mark it as required. So for emergency contact information, definitely want that required. Um, for data sets, you mark that on the data set itself. So
All right.
yeah. Do you want to save this one or just scrap it?
You can leave it there.
Okay, I'll save
Fine.
it as an example. So
We can play with.
yeah,
Mhm.
something you can play with. So that's making design. That's designing application forms. Um, these will be used for our opportunities, so that during the application process of an opportunity, yeah, we got all the basic information in their account, but this will let us ask for custom information that's particularly pertinent to us, especially things that aren't required during registration. Emergency contact is actually not even asked for during the registration process. Not every organization requires it, but by putting it on the application form for an opportunity, that is where you as an organization can say, I must have this data, as opposed to,
Mm.
I'm just going to rely on what they chose to give me. So for example, gender, not required during the registration process for an account. So most people probably don't fill it in. But you might require that information for demographic purposes, or because you might work with like women's and men's shelters, so you need to be able to find volunteers that are men or women, for example. Um, so this will be used for your opportunities, not for your partners, by the way.
Okay.
Simone had a question. Or can it be? I think, yeah, I think it's just for yours.
Okay.
All right, so that's application forms. Our next step from here is going to be the rest of our training today, and it's your opportunities. So if I go to our opportunities, this is where you will see a list of all of your opportunities, all the opportunities you control. In partner opportunities, you will see the opportunities for your partners. And depending on your level of control over them, you may have options. So that's next time. So here I see you've created two opportunities. I love my parks and the prom boutique dress collection day. And they are both basic. So at this point, I'm actually going to switch over to my demo system so that we can make some opportunities, play with them, and I'm not going to affect your real data. So,
All right, but I do have a question to change Diana's email as a contact for, let's say, the prom. What do I do? We have a generic prom@. email that we'd rather have Diana's name. The executive director who doesn't need to get those emails.
Yeah, that's actually not possible because the email, the person who gets the emails when someone signs up is based on the owner, and that owner is one of your users. So Diana is a user. And earlier I thought you were mentioning that you had a generic email for the organization as a whole that you'd rather use, in which case you can create a user using that email and then select that user here. But if you have a email that's opportunity specific, at this time there is no way to indicate that the email for this opportunity is different from the user assigned to the opportunity.
I know I could put it in the description, but obviously if somebody clicks that little message board,
it's going to go to the user. So, and I would not advise making a user just for one opportunity.
well, for us, we have two licenses. The way I understand it, two licenses,
Yes,
those two users. So we haven't set up the generic one that Simone and I go to for. That'll solve us in the short term, but not in the long term.
Yeah, because that way you can at least attach the opportunities to your organization's generic email. But at this time, like I mentioned, there's no way to assign an email specifically for one opportunity that's not a user. But I can look into that.
The agencies too, for the organization.
Well, that I can do.
Because
That's actually doable. That one's doable, and we'll see that in just a moment.
Okay.
Yeah, so because that's, once again, that goes back to being user-based as opposed to custom email. So let's go ahead and set that aside for now, and because we're just going to see it within like the next 3 minutes, and let us take a look at my demo organization, and let's make some opportunities over here. So we have two kinds of opportunities that you can create. We have basic and we have advanced. Advanced are, well, advanced, they have more scheduling options than basic. Basic are the kind that you can create for your agencies, for your partners. So they have a much simpler configuration, and the main difference between them and advanced is the scheduling options available. So when you're creating an opportunity, depending on the kind you want, you either go add basic opportunity or add advanced opportunity, and you'll get either, well, a basic or advanced. So I'm just going to go ahead and edit my basic here because it's already configured for us. And we will look at, oh wait, no, I can't do that quite yet. Excuse me, because you're a VAC, so I need to show something to you first on a new one. So when I'm creating an opportunity, you will have a on behalf of option when you create it. Not when you edit, but when you create it. And what this lets you do is say, well, I'm making this on behalf of free agency, because that's one of my partners. And I'm going to assign this not to myself, which is the default, but I'm going to assign it to the partner organization staff users, Eric Metzler. So this agency has a staff member called Eric, and he is going to take control of this opportunity, and he is going to get the emails. So this is how you would assign it to the agency and to a user at that agency. If you want to one of your staff to use it, then it's our staff users. But chances are, per your question, you would want partner organization staff users, and then select one of them. So that's how you'll do that. Okay.
That's the same thing that the organization probably was created by one of the higher level people, not the ones that are doing the day-to-day work.
Mm-hmm.
Their name, executive director's name.
It's hard to say. I've yet to actually have that be a problem, to be honest. But you're correct. It could have been that the executive director set up the account, in which case, I would encourage them to create a user for the actual people who are doing the day-to-day, and not for the executive director who is not, but to be a user. So that would be a user management item for them. To remove the executive director and add an actual day-to-day user that will be responsible. Or use a generic email like volunteers@agencyname.org or whatever. And that would probably be my recommendation and would solve that problem. And require, if there's a staff change, that we don't keep swapping out users. They can just, hey, here's the password, because it's a generic email. Kind of like what you're planning to do. Okay. Hello? I lost audio. Curses.
Hi.
Hi, I'm back. Sorry about that. We have a very horrible internet provider here at the office, so I apologize for that. Where did I lose you?
I was just saying the difficulty with agencies. A lot of times they give their, well, anyway, it's our problem where they switch out the person and the person goes with their email, and they're constantly changing things. But we'll figure that out.
My solution to that is actually what you're planning to do, is have them create a user with a generic email like volunteers at the agency's your domain, .org, and that way as staff members rotate in and out, it's not bound to a single person's email, but to a generic email that's used for like the volunteer program. And that solves a lot of turnover problems.
Yeah.
So that's my advice if anyone ever asks. What I would advise you telling them to do. Okay, cool.
Okay.
So let's mosey on. We are way behind schedule, but oh well. I got the time if you do. So let's go through a basic opportunity, and then we're going to go through an advanced opportunity. The real difference is the scheduling, like I mentioned. So let's just go ahead and edit my basic one here, and we're going to run through the fields. A lot of them are pretty self-explanatory. Opportunity name, the name of the opportunity. Opportunity owner, that's the user that we talked about. Program, is this opportunity linked to a given program? So like the emergency program or whatever program it might be. The location, where will this opportunity take place? And the positions, different jobs that we might need the volunteers to do. The default will be just volunteer, but maybe they want to break it up into different jobs. So this is a fundraising event. So we need bartenders, greeters, an S, and table hosts. So those are examples of how we might break down the opportunity into different jobs. So opportunities, I should have given a definition first. Opportunities are what the volunteer is signing up for. and should usually be pretty descriptive, though not too overly precise or long, because that's what we have the details section for. But basically, it's the job posting, where you're saying what you're doing. So here I say we need spring fundraiser helpers. It gives you a sense of what it's doing without going into too much detail. Usually, what I recommend is that opportunities should be relatively finite in time period, and also discrete in that they aren't representing something too like broad, but something that a person can kind of get their mind around and kind of understand exactly what they're getting into. So if I just said event helpers and had that represent all the helpers for all events, that's way too broad,
Right.
because the person doesn't know, well, what if I don't want to do all events? So usually I'd base it on one event or a finite number of amount of time. So for like an internship, if you do it this way, it would be for like spring, fall, winter, or the year of 2016, not internships for the next 5 years.
Right.
So that I kind of touched on that earlier with things. Part of the benefit there is if I do have like an ongoing volunteer activity that does kind of continue from year to year, by putting it into chunks of a year, I can require that they reapply each year. Thus, I get an updated list of volunteers, and the volunteer fills out my updated form. So if I've updated my
Mhm.
form, I now have the new data, and I may require that they do a new orientation. So I might have a new orientation for each year. So that's why I recommend discrete time periods, and we'll see that more scheduling of month, quarter, or year, depending on the situation. For example, I have a Habitat for Humanity that I work with. They set up their construction opportunity on a monthly basis so that they get all the volunteers for the month signing up, and then they do their scheduling based on the locations within that opportunity. But it's nice and discrete, finite time period. Okay, so that kind of brings us into the topic of scheduling. Now, on a basic opportunity, our scheduling is, well, basic. When we go to an advanced, we'll note this won't even be present here, and we'll have a new tab for it. So for a basic opportunity, we have two kinds of scheduling. We have one time, i.e. one day, or we have ongoing, which is effectively just a time period. So we can say for the month of March. We're not saying what days of the week. We're not saying what days of the month. We're just saying it's sometime between this date and this date. So it's a little on the nebulous side. But not every organization wants to be that, you know, granular with their scheduling. So one time, one day, ongoing, some fixed time period. So that's our schedule. When is the activity happening, opportunity happening? Next is the shift. When will the volunteers be showing up? With our advanced scheduling, we will actually be able to do multiple shifts for a given day or a given time period. So this is where we give it a name. It's going to say something like default, but I usually recommend give it something a bit more descriptive, and a start time and an end time. So for example, here on the 16th, the volunteers show up from 5 to 10. You might do something with a different time period. You can also do a time is flexible. So this is really handy for an opportunity where it really doesn't matter when the volunteer shows up, just that they did. So you might have an ongoing opportunity for some time period where volunteers show up, pick up flyers, and then distribute them for you. That would be an example where we'd use the ongoing option. We just know that they're showing up for this week, and time is flexible. We don't care when they do it as long as they do it. So we can be very particular, or we can be very vague, depending on what you need to do.
Okay.
So any questions on this page?
Well, can each position, can the bartenders come in later than the greeters?
On a
Or it's,
basic opportunity, no. On an advanced
okay.
opportunity, yes.
Okay.
So we'll see that when we get to advanced opportunity. That's the main difference. Is for basic, we keep it very simple. For
Okay.
advanced, we get very advanced. So we'll see that in just a few minutes. But good question. Any other questions on this page before we mosey on to the next page?
No.
Okay, so this next page, this requirements page, is one of the heavier pages. Actually, it is the heaviest page in terms of configuration of an opportunity. This is where we set the search tags and the settings for our opportunity. This page is the same for both a basic and an advanced opportunity. So we'll start with the search tags, and we'll give you those definitions I promised. So up here at the top, we have all of our search tags, as well as you can type in custom keywords. So I could put in something like events as a keyword if I wanted to, events. Just hit enter and it adds it in. Where did I put it in? It didn't add it in. There we go, events, with all my inability to type it added, shown in perfect glory. So we can put in any key. I always do that. I hold the shift key too long. So you can add in custom keywords, or you can choose from the search tags that you can configure with the system. So I mentioned them earlier. Let's give definitions. Causes, the bigger picture. What is the bigger picture that this opportunity is supporting? Probably tied to the mission statement of the organization. If I am a homeless shelter, my cause is hunger and homelessness. If I think there's, if we were doing, the bigger cause was disaster and emergency services. Bam, there it is. As mentioned, you can configure your own in configurations. Here, my demo organization, I usually base it on like a arts organization or something like that. But in this case, I did civics and community because we're a
So
volunteer
one
action
thing,
center.
when I filled out this form earlier and didn't include that, I found out it was a required field, so it should show a red mark.
Yeah, so if I was to unmark this, when I save, it will,
Causes
yeah, let me.
gave me an error, so it should have a red mark.
Oh, okay, see, we got it. Yeah, you're right, it should. I thought it did.
That was the only thing that showed that I should have put something in. I had left a lot blank.
Gotcha, which is fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I can get that fixed. So causes, the bigger picture. Activity type, well, what is it you're doing in support of the bigger picture? So event organizing is the activity in support of the civics and community cause. And then skill is what skills a volunteer might need to do the activity in support of the cause. So that's a lot more about the activity itself, opportunity itself. Over here, we start talking about who's going to get helped by the opportunity. Now, for a fundraiser for an organization, there's really no one directly benefiting because it's benefiting the organization. But other opportunities like we need people to serve food at a food kitchen. Well, obviously that's going to benefit the population of low-income communities and homeless or homeless. And maybe it's a soup kitchen for all ages, or maybe it's a soup kitchen for just women or just men or something like that, part of maybe a men's shelter or a women's shelter. So gender might come into play here. So this is basically who's going to be benefited. So no one gets benefited in my example directly, so I'm not going to use any of them. From here, we talk a little bit about the volunteer. So we have the main one here is age of volunteer. And I half tongue-in-cheek mentioned that this is the most important of all the search tags. And I do that half because it's actually kind of true. And my reasoning for that is thus. I actually used to get a lot of phone calls by people who would get a hold of my number, volunteers. And they meant to contact the organization. And they'd ask, hey, I'm looking for an opportunity for myself, I'm 14, or I'm looking for something for my 13-year-old son or daughter. And I'd be like, well, I can't directly advise you on that, but technical support, I can do that. There's this search tag. You can search for it and see if you can find opportunities that were appropriate for you. 9 times out of 10, the search tag wasn't applied to any opportunities or inappropriately applied. We are not going to have children doing tax preparation. Just not going to happen. Unless they're like really awesome children, but chances are that's not the case. The kids are pretty cool. So I highly recommend that you encourage all your partner organizations to apply this search tag to all their opportunities, or for you to as well apply the search tag to all your opportunities, because there's a lot of kids out there, a lot of teenagers, a lot of mothers and fathers looking for opportunities for themselves or for their children that are age appropriate. So this actually comes up a lot. So that's why I spent this 3-minute dialogue on it.
And can we adjust groups?
Yes, you can.
Or those?
Yes, you can.
Okay, great.
Yeah, they come. We have some that come with the system, but you can create your own age groups as appropriate. So
Great.
officially, that's the end of the search tags. But the next piece here, the groups, is kind of half search tag, half setting. So I mentioned it before I go into settings. Most of the time, your volunteers will probably be individuals. But it is possible for volunteers to band together into groups called teams, and for those teams to sign up for an opportunity. Whether or not you allow that is determined by this setting here. Do we allow group sign up? Yes or no? And then people can search for opportunities that allow it. And then the second setting on there is, do we need to know who the team members are? Or are we fine with just being told there's going to be 5 of them? So for
Mm.
something like a beach cleanup, totally fine. We just need people. For something like an internship, we're looking at people individually, not as groups. So this is
Right.
where we can dictate whether or not team sign up is allowed, and if we need to know who the teams are. Any questions about search tags before we move into settings?
No.
Okay, so the next part is settings. I'm going to start here on the right. The first one is whether or not an application form is required. So basically we say what the form might be, or no form at all. No form at all. No form at all. There we go. So if you want to require a form and thus capture that customized information or required information, just go ahead and select the form that you've previously created. Or if you want, edit the form you've selected or even add a new one. So that's forms. So with an opportunity, there are kind of 2 extremes we can go to in terms of configuration. We can basically have everything turned off or everything turned on. If we have everything turned off, the flow a volunteer will get, including the application form not being used, the flow we'd get when a volunteer applies is they registered an account at some point, they apply for the opportunity, they'll be added to the opportunity as a volunteer, you'll set their schedule, and you will log their hours. So very simple, straightforward, most of the work's put on you, and not a lot of process to it. To the other extreme, the volunteer will create their account, they will fill out an application form, they will finish the application process. You will get a notice of that. You will review their application, either approve or deny them. And when the background check feature is implemented, that will also be a part of that process, but we'll ignore it for now because it's only on my demo site. Once you've approved them, they will have to go to an orientation. You will indicate that they attended the orientation. They will then be able to schedule themselves, or you can schedule them, and then they'll be able to log their own hours, or you can log their hours. So as you can see, we can be very simple or very complex. And these settings will dictate the level of that complexity. So over here, whether or not there's an application form, whether or not a volunteer must be approved by you, thus you must vet their application, whether or not a background check is used. This feature is not implemented yet, but it's coming. Whether or not they have to go to an orientation, and then what orientation they have to go to, and then you'd indicate that. Whether or not they're allowed to set their own schedule, or is that something dictated only for you to do, and whether or not they can log their own hours, or if that's something reserved for you. So that's what all these settings will do, and they're pretty straightforward in what they say what they do. So any questions about those settings, and then I'll talk about this last one.
No, that's good.
Yeah, and you can do any combination you need. I've seen it all, so a lot of flexibility there. The last setting here is while the next step will indicate whether or not the opportunity is published online and thus available via search, this setting will dictate whether or not it's put on your calendar. Your public site has a calendar. Currently, it's going to show all your orientations. It's got limited space. It's a calendar. So whether or not an opportunity is also listed there is up to you on a per opportunity basis. So I usually keep this off to keep the calendar from getting too cluttered, but you can turn it on.
Oh, that's a good point. Okay.
Yeah, that calendar can get very full very fast. And so you probably want to reserve it for those bigger opportunities that you're kind of trying to push.
Okay, good. I'll look.
Alrighty. Yeah. So a last piece on this page, before we move on, just going to mention it. There are a number of ways we can log hours. We're going to see that in the next training. One of them is the volunteer can log their own hours. One of them is that you can log it. Another option is that you can simply say that they showed up that day, and the system will log the hours for you. This is a great feature. This is how you can turn that off. Or we have an add-on called Time It, which allows them to use their PIN number in a dedicated page where they can sign in, start the clock, and then sign off and end the clock. And the system will log the hours. All you have to do is approve the hours. You can actually, if you're using that feature, you can have them auto clock out via the setting here. But not everybody uses that. I just wanted to mention what it was because some people ask me. So that's everything on this page. So that's actually the heaviest page short of scheduling in terms of the creation of an opportunity. The last step next is publishing. When you're publishing to your site, all you have to do is set the date and hit the publish button, or unpublish if you want to take it down. When one of your partners publishes to your page, they get a slightly different page than what you see here. In all other ways, they actually see what you the same flows, the same processes that you do that you have. So actually, everything I'm teaching you today is the same information you would relay to your partner if they ever had a question.
Okay.
But this last page will vary. So what they're actually going to see is instead of this publish unpublished, because they don't have their own public site, they're linked into yours. So they will select your organization and they will hit just simply a publish unpublished button at the bottom. So it's a little different. And that will push it to your site where you can approve or reject it. And that's next topic for next time. They will also have the option, if they're associated to one of your programs, to publish to that program. And then you can approve or reject from there as depending on your settings. So a little different from yours, but effectively the same. If somebody says, hey, my opportunity is not on your public site, place number one to have them check is that they have selected your organization and hit the publish unpublished button. The next place to check is that the date range on their schedules are not in the past. So if this event is back in 2015, obviously it's not going to be on the site anymore.
Right.
So what they would have to do is go to inactive opportunities, find the opportunity, and copy it, and then remake it for the new year or the new month or whatever. So that came up recently with a VAC I was working with, so I want to make sure to mention it. So any questions?
That,
Oh,
some of our agencies, everything got transferred over, and then there were opportunities that timed out, and they're not considered inactive. And I was just trying to update the date since the item is still going on, and I couldn't do it. I can only do it for those that came over as inactive. Is that correct?
No, you can do it for active ones. Chances are you don't have permission to edit their opportunities. And that's one of the, like I said, when we talk about opportunities, your organizations in the next training, because that's the focus of the next training, is how do you support them and work with your organizations. We'll talk about what powers you do have, what you don't have, and what they'll have to do for themselves.
Okay.
But that's one of the things that will probably come up. They'll say, hey, it's not on your site, and you'll say, hey, did you publish it to us? Is it outdated?
Yeah.
So we'll talk more about that next time. Yeah, I'm sorry to push so much off on the next one. You're probably eager to get ready on that one, but we'll schedule in a few minutes for that training. But the last thing, speaking of scheduling, we need to talk about is advanced opportunities and the scheduling therein. So when we create an advanced opportunity, I'm just going to edit one I have. There's a few things that are different. Difference number one, page one, basics. We don't have that scheduling piece on here, and we can add multiple locations. So that's the first piece that's different. And that results in the second difference. Scheduling is now its own tab. So what scheduling lets us do is create more interesting, he says with a smirk, and advanced opportunity schedules. I find advanced things interesting, but I'm a geek, so there we go. So in our basic, we only had one time, which was just one day, and ongoing, a fixed time period. With
Right.
advanced, we can schedule by location, so I can have different schedules for different locations, and we have a weekly option, a monthly option, and an other option. So let's run through what these ones are. Weekly is probably your most common one. That basically says from this date to this date, for these days of the week, the location will need volunteers. We're not saying yet what times the location needs that volunteer, just that the volunteers will be needed on those days. So kind of the example I use is kind of an analogy to retail, if anybody ever worked that, or even your own office hours. You know, the store might be open Monday through Saturday. That is its schedule. But when the employees show up, that's a shift. So
Okay.
what you're going to set up is your schedule for location is from this date to this date, I need people on these days. And then we'll set up
Mhm.
shifts saying what times of those days are the people showing up. So when you actually go to update a location, what I actually recommend is instead of editing the old schedule, make a new one. And then you can keep things tidy, or just make a whole new opportunity, which is really, really recommend, is copy the opportunity and build a fresh opportunity for the new schedule. That way we start everything fresh and have a nice clean volunteer list and not having volunteers from like 3 years ago.
Mhm.
I actually saw an opportunity the other day that had almost 2,900 volunteers on it. And I just looked at it and like, how would you manage this? So we want to
Right.
prevent that level of clutter by breaking up our opportunities a bit. So weekly, pretty straightforward. Every week, first week of the, first Tuesday, Thursday of the month, alternating, so on and so forth. Um, Monthly lets you select days of the month. Don't see this used a lot, mostly because they move around in the week a lot. And then other, very powerful one. This is basically a one-time, but you get multiple of them for a given location, and lets you
Mhm.
do erratic schedules. So if you're doing like a beach cleanup, I know I use that example a lot, that is based on the tide, but you can only do it during certain days of the, certain times of the day when the tide is the lowest. Obviously, the tide is not going to be low tide on every day from 2 to 3. That's only going to be certain days. So that would be an example where you might use the other schedule because it's going to be a bit erratic.
Right.
But as mentioned,
Very.
weekly is the most common option.
Mhm.
So once you set your schedule, you'll go ahead and save it. It'll get add over here to the right, and we can start adding shifts. Now it's going to prompt you for that first shift. But let's take a look at my two schedules over here. So I have two locations that we need tax helpers at. I have SoCo Nexus, which is actually my office building, and the William Hartnell building, which doesn't actually exist. And the SoCo Nexus is from the beginning of 2016 till the end of April, every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday and Saturday. It is open. And then I have a shift that says, right, I have a weekday morning shift. So every weekday, so not including Saturday, people will show up from 10 to 1. And these are the positions and the max number of each position that I need. And then I kind of have the same thing going on over here. William Hartnell building, I have a Monday morning shift and a Monday afternoon shift. So I could do weekdays, which are just multiple days of the week, or I could do daily, however I want. So when we add a new shift, so let's add a new shift over here. Let's do a Saturday morning shift. Add shift to the SoCo Nexus. I give the shift a name, and it should be something nice and clear because this is actually what the volunteer will see if they schedule themselves. So it should be something that kind of tells them what they're getting into. So Saturday morning tells me very clearly what I'm getting into. It's only applicable to Saturday morning. So as you can see here, I could build for multiple days. I could do for each day separately. And we'll talk about why I might do it each day separately. And I can have overlap, I can have gaps, whatever I need. And our Saturday morning is from, say, 9 a.m. till noon. And I need greeters, tax helpers, but I don't need interpreters and site coordinators. And I can say how much of each I need. So maybe I don't have it. So if this is an example where you're asking, could I have bartenders show up at one time and others show up at another time? Absolutely. So I could have a bartender morning shift. I'd have to have a bartender here, but you know what I'm trying to say. I could have the interpreter morning shift could be different from everybody else, or the site coordinator might show up an hour early. That's totally doable. Anything that you need is basically it can be set up. So any questions
That's
about
great.
scheduling?
Yeah, that'll be fun to play with.
Yeah.
When we get, yeah.
Yeah, you
When
can
we
get
get the,
very
I
complicated
like,
if you want to.
okay,
All
that's
right.
good to play.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So that's scheduling piece. The same scheduling tools are also available for when you create your orientations and trainings. So you can have multiple locations the orientation can be at, multiple days. As long as it's the same orientation and should be counted the same, they'll be in the same configuration.
Okay.
And then beyond that, publishing is done the same for an advanced opportunity.
Okay.
And yeah, that's creating opportunities. That is officially the end of our training for today, except for the report piece and scheduling our next one. So
I'm going to get my calendar to make
okay.
sure. Okay.
Okay. So before we do that, any questions about opportunities? And then we're going to touch on the report, and then we can schedule. Okay, cool. So as I mentioned, everything I've shown you today is the same information that your partners will need to use their accounts. I do have, if you go to the support site under Getting Started, an initial training video, and it actually goes through everything that we covered here, a bit more truncated in about 15 minutes. So I got about an hour shoved into 15 minutes, but it is actually a great resource for getting started. So I
But is
highly
that
recommend.
more or for the agencies?
It's actually for either of you. So it's
Okay.
basically, at this point, what you're doing, what I've taught you, and what an agency is doing is the same. The only difference is in our next training, we will talk about working on agencies, and that's where you guys will be different. But that initial training video is basically a 15-minute overview of what we just went through right here, and it's a great resource for you as a reminder and for your partners. So if they go, I just don't get this system, how do I use it? Have them watch that video. It's only about 15 minutes, and it'll get them started and on their feet, and it might even be all they need. So I strongly recommend that. And
Right.
then everything I've taught you, obviously. So let me show you
Okay.
how to make that, how to run that report, by the way, because I
Oh,
built that report for you.
yeah.
So let's run through that, and then we'll schedule our next meeting, and then we'll be done for the day. So to
Okay.
run a report, go to the main menu, and in this case, it is a default report. It is a system-built report that every user has access to. So it's actually going to be under default reports. And we're not going to go into all the details about reports, but I'm going to show you how to run this particular one. And this report is under volunteer reports over here on the left, so volunteer reports, and it is the volunteer list report. And it actually gives you a little bit of instruction if you click on the eye on how to run it, and that's what I'm going to run through in just a minute. And this report basically lets you search by any volunteer information, basic volunteer information, and get a list of people who match that. So volunteer list report, execute, or if you want it in a particular format like Excel, you can execute as that. I'm just going to do execute. It's going to give me a PDF. It's going to give you a filter screen. And so this is where you tell it what you want to filter by, what you want to search by. And I put in no default filters. So if I was to run this right now, I think it should, in theory, give you every volunteer in your system. Well, we don't want that right now. But what you can do for the particular request that you had is use joining date. This is the date that the volunteer joined, became associated with your organization. So joining date is equal to a given date, is in between, and I can set my date range. So I could say they started on April 1st at midnight. So you can actually get time specific if you want to. It's a bit much, but you can. And gone all the way up to today.
Excellent.
So 12 a.m. and then run. And this will give me anybody who signed up since April 1st, which I think is like 3 people. Yeah, 3 people. So nothing too fancy here. At the moment, it gives you their first name, last name, so it's sorted by last name. Joining date, since that's what we're looking at. PIN number, gender, email, phone number, and their address. I can edit this and add more information if you want. But I figured I'd just start with this. It's a good basic start.
Yep.
And then, yeah, and actually all the rest of these reports basically work the same way. But we won't go into
Sure.
details on them right now. So any questions about running that report?
No, thank you.
By the way, postal code is also something you can look for in there because I remember that was also requested.
Oh, yes, absolutely. We try to gear certain projects to certain areas. Good.
Mhm.
So we can zip. Oh, we would just need by zip and then their email. Well, that's communication. Then we
Yeah.
want to send them a group email. But we'll
Mhm.
talk about that. Monday